Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cattails, a Warrior Cats podcast. My name is Coffee, and I'm your host, and today is a very exciting episode because it is the last episode of the first book of the Warrior series. Yippee! So exciting. I got through this book faster than I thought I would. I like the approach that I'm taking of doing a few chapters a week because these are technically still children's books, so they don't take as long to finish, and I could literally just go through one chapter a week, but that would take forever, and there's not a ton to comment on, and I also don't want to read the entire book word for word, because at that point you can just go listen to an audiobook, or you can read the book yourself and download it very legally, or go to Barnes & Noble or whatever. So this is the last episode of Into the Wild before we move on to book 2 in the series. This is super exciting. So if you've made it this far, or if you've recently discovered this podcast, thank you for sticking with me. This has been really fun. As I've said a million times, I love yapping about these damn cat books. Truly. I love talking about them. I love rereading them. This podcast is mostly for, my own self-indulgence, but I enjoy that other people seem to enjoy it too. So yeah, let's get into it. Where we last left off, someone killed Spotted Leaf, the medicine cat, and Frostfur's kits are missing. And it looks like Yellowfang is the culprit from the evidence that we've seen so far. Alright, so we get into chapter 21. Yellowfang has killed Spotted Leaf and taken my kits, screeched Frostfur. Okay, so immediately just accusing Yellowfang. I know it looks like that, and she's valid in being upset because her literal children got kidnapped, but literally 10 minutes ago in the previous chapters, she was so approving of Yellowfang. Bitches be like, can't stand her fake ass. 10 minutes later, me and the bestie. But I get why she's probably, assuming here, because it looks pretty bad. So the other queens rush to care for her and calm her down. In the sky, the clouds are darkening. There's a thunderstorm. Tigerclaw says, I always knew Yellowfang was a traitor. Now we know how she managed to fight off the Shadowclan deputy. It was a setup to let her trick her way into our clan. End quote. Lightning crackled overhead, punctuating Tigerclaw's words with a glaring white flash, and a clap of thunder rolled around the woods. I am amused at how villainesque this timing is. It's like in any cartoon ever where the villain is either introduced or says something, and then there's a rumble of thunder and a flash of lightning, and it's okay, so it's making it really obvious to children that this guy's evil. If you use your critical thinking skills, you definitely know Tigerclaw's evil. Anyway, Firepaw is just extremely taken aback by all of this. He's finding it hard to believe that Yellowfang really could have killed Spotted Leaf. Darkstripe asks Bluestar what she thinks, and quote, Bluestar blinked slowly. Grief clouded her face, and for a moment Firepaw was afraid that this new death would overwhelm her. But when her eyes opened, they glittered with a fierceness that showed her determination to seek revenge for this cruel attack. She lifted her head. If Yellowfang has killed Spotted Leaf and stolen Frostfur's kits, she will be hunted down without mercy. The crowd meowed approvingly. But we must wait, Bluestar went on. There's a storm coming, and I am not prepared to risk more lives. If Shadowclan has our kits, they will come to no immediate harm. I suspect Brokenstar wants them as recruits for his own clan or as hostages, to force us to let him hunt in our territory. As soon as the storm has passed, a patrol will follow Yellowfang and bring back our kits. We cannot waste time, or the scent will be lost in the rain, Tigerclaw protested. Bluestar flicked her tail impatiently. If we send out a hunting party now, our efforts will be wasted anyway. In this weather, the scent will already be lost by the time we are ready. If we wait until after the storm, we stand a better chance of success. So the clan murmurs in agreement at this. The storm is definitely coming, and the clan cats are very unsettled and willing to listen to their leader's advice. Bluestar tells Tigerclaw she'd like to discuss plans with him, and then, quote, she glanced at Firepaw, signaling with a flick of her tail and a ripple of her whiskers that she wanted to speak to him alone. So as the other clan cats gather around Spotted Leaf and begin to grieve over her, Bluestar leads Firepaw into Spotted Leaf's den to talk quietly. Bluestar asks him where Yellowfang is, and, quote, Firepaw hardly heard her. He couldn't help remembering the last time he had come to this clearing. An image of Spotted Leaf trotting out of her den with her coat gleaming in the sunlight burned in his mind, and he closed his eyes to preserve it. Firepaw, snapped Bluestar. You must save your greeting for later. She's basically like, bro, lock in. I get that he's sad that she died, but they talked like 3 times. Firepaw snaps out of it, and he tells her that he saw Yellowfang go through the camp boundary after the kits went missing, and he asks her if she really thinks Spotted Leaf took the kits. Bluestar admits that she doesn't know, and that he wants him to find her and bring her back alive. She needs to know the truth. Firepaw couldn't help asking, she's not sending Tigerclaw? End quote. Tigerclaw is a great warrior, but in this case his loyalty to the clan may cloud his judgment, Bluestar explained. He wants to give the clan the vengeance it desires. No cat can blame him for that. The clan believes Yellowfang has betrayed us, and if Tigerclaw thinks he can reassure the clan by handing them the dead body of Yellowfang, that's what he will do. Firepaw nodded. She was right. Tigerclaw would kill Yellowfang without question. Bluestar looked stern for a moment. If I find that Yellowfang is a traitor, then I will kill her myself. But if she is not, her blue eyes burned into Firepaw's. I will not let an innocent cat die. But what if Yellowfang won't come back? Firepaw meowed. She will, if you ask her. So, Bluestar obviously knows how close they are, and that Firepaw is probably the one cat Yellowfang will trust. Firepaw felt stunned by Bluestar's faith in him. The enormity of what she was asking him to do weighed down on him, and he wondered if he had enough courage to carry it through. Bluestar orders him to go at once, but to be careful. He'll be on his own, and there may be enemy patrols about. The storm will keep our own warriors in camp for a while. So Firepaw dashes out into the clearing, and the storm is starting. Rain is hammering down. But he knows he can't leave without sharing tongues with Spotted Leaf one last time. End quote. Firepaw buried his nose in Spotted Leaf's wet fur and breathed in her scent one last time. Goodbye, my sweet Spotted Leaf, he murmured. Y'all weren't even together. Lock in. Bluestar's telling him to lock in, now I'm telling him to lock in. Like, I remember reading this as a kid, I was like, oh my god, they love each other so much. And reading this as an adult, I'm like, they talked 3 times, and like, they were like, you know, attracted to each other, sure, but they didn't become very close at all, so, like, I don't really get this obsession with Spotted Leaf other than, oh, she's so pretty, like, not all men, but always a man, am I right? Okay, anyway. His ears pricked as he overheard the voices of Frostfur and Speckletail talking nearby. He froze, straining to listen. Yellowfang must have had help, Speckletail growled. Someone from ThunderClan? Came the anxious voice of Frostfur. You've heard what Tigerclaw's been saying about Ravenpaw. Perhaps he had something to do with it. I've never felt comfortable with him myself. The fur on Firepaw's spine prickled. If Tigerclaw had been spreading his malicious rumors as far as the nursery, Ravenpaw wouldn't be safe anywhere in the camp, which is very dire. This has escalated very quickly from hinting at Ravenpaw as being like a bad cat to, okay, something's gonna happen. So Firepaw realizes he has to act quickly, and he needs to find Yellowfang first and then deal with Ravenpaw. So he begins to search for Yellowfang's scent trail. And then he runs into GRAYPAW, who says he's been looking for him. GRAYPAW asks where he's going, and Firepaw tells him he's going to look for Yellowfang. GRAYPAW is concerned that Firepaw's going on his own, end quote. Firepaw thought for a moment and decided to tell GRAYPAW the truth. Bluestar asked me to bring Yellowfang back, he mewed. What? GRAYPAW looked shocked. Why you? Maybe she thinks I know Yellowfang best, and that I'd find her more easily. Wouldn't a party of warriors stand more of a chance? GRAYPAW pointed out. Tigerclaw's the best tracker in the clan, and if anyone could bring her back, he could. Maybe Tigerclaw wouldn't bring her back, Firepaw murmured. What do you mean? Tigerclaw's out for revenge. He would just kill her. But if she killed Spotted Leaf and took the kits... Do you really believe that? Firepaw asked. GRAYPAW looked at his friend, shaking his head in confusion. Do you think she's innocent? He mewed. I don't know, Firepaw admitted. And neither does Bluestar. She wants to find out the truth. That's why she's sending me instead of Tigerclaw. But if she ordered Tigerclaw to bring her back alive... GRAYPAW's words were drowned by a deafening crack of thunder, and a flash of lightning lit up the trees around them. GRAYPAW seems to gain consciousness a little bit here as he trails off and realizes not everybody wants to follow the rules. Tigerclaw in particular. End quote. In the dazzling light, Firepaw glimpsed Frostfur chasing Ravenpaw away from the nursery. The White Queen's face was twisted with fury as she hissed at the young black cat and lunged forward to give him a warning nip on the hind leg. So... Tigerclaw's rumors are working, unfortunately, and like I said, this is escalating very quickly. GRAYPAW asks Firepaw what that is all about. Firepaw doesn't reply, but he realizes that Ravenpaw's time has run out, and he needs GRAYPAW's help. So Firepaw tells GRAYPAW that Ravenpaw is in danger, and he has to get him away from ThunderClan right now before anything happens to him. GRAYPAW asks, what about Yellowfang? Firepaw says there's no time to explain, and you'll just have to trust me. There must be a way we can get Ravenpaw away. Bluestar's going to keep the warriors in camp till the storm is over, but that doesn't leave us much time. We'll have to take him somewhere Tigerclaw won't find him, somewhere he can survive without the clan. GRAYPAW suggests bringing him to Barley. And Firepaw says that's a good idea, and it might be the best idea. So GRAYPAW agrees to help, says, come on, what are we waiting for? Firepaw thanks him, and says, now let's get RAVENPAW. They find RAVENPAW huddled inside the apprentice's den. Sandpaw and Dustpaw are there too, and they look tense and scared as the storm crashed overhead. Firepaw calls out to RAVENPAW, who follows him out into the storm. Firepaw tells him they're taking him to Barley. RAVENPAW asks why, and Firepaw tells him you'll be safe there, and he looks him straight in the eye when he says that. RAVENPAW asks if he saw what Frostfur did and explains that he was only going to check on the kids, but Firepaw interrupts him and says, we must hurry. RAVENPAW says thanks, and so they all run toward the camp entrance. And as they enter the gorse tunnel, a voice called them back. Quote, you three, where are you going? It was Tigerclaw. Firepaw whirled around, feeling his heart sink. He wondered desperately what he could say when he spotted Bluestar striding toward them. She frowned for a moment, then her face cleared. Well done, Firepaw, she meowed. I see you've persuaded your two friends to go with you. ThunderClan has brave apprentices, Tigerclaw, if they are willing to run an errand in weather like this. So, she's obviously covering for them. Is she aware of the clan turning on RAVENPAW? Does she suspect Tigerclaw? I'm not sure. Surely this is not a time for errands, objected Tigerclaw. One of Brindleface's kits has a cough. Bluestar's voice was icily calm. Firepaw has offered to fetch some coltsfoot for her. Does he really need his friends to go too? Asked Tigerclaw. In the storm, I think he's lucky to have the company, answered Bluestar. She looked deep into Firepaw's eyes, and he was suddenly aware of the trust she was placing in him. Off you go, you three, she meowed. I think she's placing trust in him to find Yellowfang with his friends, but it seems like she also sort of knows that something else is up. I don't know. She's like very intuitive, so I wouldn't be surprised if she knows something, because she's like one of those characters that just like knows everything somehow. But I still don't think she suspects Tigerclaw for anything. And so Firepaw thanks her and leads his friends to Four Trees. As they're still walking towards Four Trees, quote, are you going to tell me exactly why we need to get RAVENPAW away? Panted GRAYPAW. Because he knows that Tigerclaw killed Redtail, Firepaw answered. Tigerclaw killed Redtail? GRAYPAW echoed in disbelief, stopping dead and staring first at Firepaw and then at RAVENPAW. At the battle with RiverClan, puffed RAVENPAw. I saw him. But why would he do that? GRAYPAW protested, setting off again. Because he's evil? I love GRAYPAW. He's kind of stupid sometimes, though. Like, why would he kill someone? I don't know. Let's use our thinking skills. I get what he's asking here, but it's like, man, he just is not clued into what's going on at all. He's just in his own world. And so, quote, they started down the slope that led into the clearing of Four Trees. I don't know. Maybe he thought Bluestar would make him deputy, Firepaw suggested, raising his voice against the wind. GRAYPAW didn't reply, but his face darkened. So finally, he's caught up with everything. They begin to climb the slope that leads up to WindClan territory. He explains to GRAYPAW that he overheard Tigerclaw talking to Darkstripe and Longtail on the night Lionheart was killed. He wants to get rid of GRAYPAW. GRAYPAW says, get rid of him? You mean kill him? And then Firepaw says, you saw the way Frostfur went for RAVENPAW today? Tigerclaw's been hinting to everyone that RAVENPAW is a traitor, but he'll be safe with Barley. Now come on, we must hurry. End quote. It was impossible to talk in the open expanse of WindClan territory. The wind howled around them while the thunder and lightning rolled and flashed overhead. The three cats lowered their heads and pushed onward into the heart of the storm. Eventually, they reached the edge of the plateau that marked the end of WindClan's territory. We can't take you any farther, RAVENPAW, meowed Firepaw through the gale. We have to get back and find Yellowfang before the storm is past. RAVENPAW looked up through the battering rain, alarmed. Then he nodded. Will you be able to find Barley alone? Yelled Firepaw. Yes, I remember the way, answered RAVENPAW. Watch out for those dogs, warned GRAYPAW. RAVENPAW nodded. I will. Suddenly he frowned. How can you be sure Barley will welcome me? Just tell him you caught an adder once, answered GRAYPAW, affectionately nudging his friend's rain-soaked shoulder. Go, Firepaw urged, aware that time was short. He licked RAVENPAW's skinny chest. And don't worry, I'll make sure everyone knows you didn't betray ThunderClan. What if Tigerclaw comes looking for me? RAVENPAW's voice was small against the rumbling storm. Firepaw met his gaze steadily. He won't. I shall tell him, you are dead. That's the end of chapter 21. My audio just randomly stopped recording, so I'm going to start chapter 22 over again. Firepaw and GRAYPAW retrace their steps to ThunderClan territory. The storm is beginning to move away, and a ThunderClan patrol is going to be out soon and on Yellowfang's trail. They have to find her first. GRAYPAW suggests they head straight into Shadowclan territory, but Firepaw explains that they need to pick up Yellowfang's scent first, and he hopes it won't lead to the Shadowclan camp. They head back into ThunderClan territory. Now that the rain has stopped, the scents around them were beginning to return. He picks up Yellowfang's scent, and, quote, to his dismay, he realized Yellowfang's scent was indeed leading them straight to Shadowclan territory. His heart sank. Did this mean Tigerclaw's accusations were true? Firepaw began to hope that each new smell would take them in a different direction, but the trail was unfaltering. So they crossed the Thunderpath into Shadowclan territory, and GRAYPAW nervously says, "I always thought I'd have a few more warriors with me when I finally entered Shadowclan territory." Firepaw asks if he's afraid, and GRAYPAW says, "Aren't you? My mother warned me about the stench of Shadowclan many times." Firepaw says, "My mother never taught me such things." Well, of course she didn't. Y'all were house cats. This "I like apples and bananas" comment, like... I love him, but anyway. They prowl onward, alert to every sight and sound, and they're on the lookout for Shadowclan patrols, as well as the ThunderClan hunting patrol. End quote. Yellowfang's scent trail led them steadily into the heart of Shadowclan's hunting grounds. The woods here were gloomy, the undergrowth crowded with nettles and brambles. "I can't smell her," complained GRAYPAW. "It's too wet." "It's there," Firepaw assured him. "I can smell that, though," GRAYPAW spat suddenly. "What?" Firepaw hissed. He stopped, alarmed. "Kit scent. There's blood here, too." Firepaw sniffed again, seeking out the smell of ThunderClan offspring. "I smell it too," he agreed. "And something else." He flicked his tail down sharply, warning GRAYPAW to keep quiet. Then, silently, he signaled with his whiskers toward a blackened ash tree up ahead. GRAYPAW twitched his ears questioningly. Firepaw gave him a tiny nod. Yellowfang was sheltering behind the wide, split trunk. Instinctively, the two cats separated, each moving toward the tree, one on either side. They crept over the soft forest floor, using all the tricks of basic training, stepping lightly, keeping their bodies low. Then they leaped. Yellowfang yowled with surprise as the two cats landed beside her and pinned her to the ground. She struggled free, spitting, and backed into a sheltered hollow at the base of the trunk. Firepaw and GRAYPAW moved forward, blocking her way out. "I knew ThunderClan would blame me," she hissed, her eyes flashing with all her old hostility. "Where are the kits?" Firepaw demanded. "We can smell their blood," spat GRAYPAW. "Have you harmed them?" "I don't have them," snarled Yellowfang angrily. "I've come to find them and take them back. I stopped because I smelled blood too. But they're not here." Firepaw and GRAYPAW looked at one another. "I don't have them," insisted Yellowfang. "So why did you run away then? Why did you kill Spotted Leaf?" GRAYPAW asked the questions Firepaw couldn't bring himself to say out loud. "Spotted Leaf is dead?" There was no mistaking the shock in Yellowfang's voice. So, she's either incredibly good at acting, or she didn't kill Spotted Leaf. But because she's genuinely shocked, she probably didn't kill Spotted Leaf. Relief washed over Firepaw. "You didn't know?" he croaked. "How could I? I left the camp as soon as I heard the kits were missing." GRAYPAW looked suspicious, but Firepaw could hear the truth in her voice. He knows her better than anyone else does, so... if he trusts her, then I guess we as the audience have to trust her as well. "I know who's taken the kits," she continued. "I smelled a scent near the nursery." "Who was it?" Firepaw asked. "Clawface, one of Broken Star's warriors. And as long as the kits are with Shadowclan, they're in great danger." "But surely even Shadowclan wouldn't harm kits," Firepaw protested. "Don't be so sure," spat Yellowfang. "Broken Star intends to use them as warriors." "But they're only 3 moons old," GRAYPAW gasped. "That hasn't stopped him before. He's been training kits as young as 3 moons since he became leader. At 5 moons, he sends them out as warriors." "Surely they'd be too small to fight," Firepaw protested. But in his mind's eye, he pictured the undersized Shadowclan apprentices he had seen at the gathering. They weren't just small, they were kits. So Broken Star really does have a child army. For humans, this would probably equate to 10-year-olds going to war. The children yearn for the trenches. No, but this is actually, horrible. Yellowfang hissed scornfully. "Broken Star doesn't care about that. He has plenty more kits to spare, and if they run out, he can steal them from other clans." Her voice was filled with rage. "After all, we're talking about a cat who killed kits from his own clan." Firepaw and GRAYPAW were stunned. "If he killed Shadowclan's kits, why wasn't he punished?" Firepaw asked at last. "Because he lied," growled Yellowfang. Bitterness made her voice hard. "He accused me of their murder, and Shadowclan believed him." Aha! So there's the kit lore that I've been wondering about this entire time, and why she's so uncomfortable around kits. Because she was accused of murdering them. So Firepaw understands this, and asks if that's why she was driven out of Shadowclan, and he tells her to come back and tell all this to Blue Star, but Yellowfang insists on rescuing the kits first. The rain and the wind is dying down, so Firepaw realizes the ThunderClan patrol would be on its way soon. GRAYPAW is still shocked by Yellowfang's accusation, and asks her how a leader could kill kits from his own clan. End quote. Broken Star insisted on training them too hard and too young. He took 2 of the kits away for battle practice. Yellowfang took a deep, wheezing breath. "They were only 4 moons old. They were already dead when he brought them back to me. They bore the scratches and bites of a full warrior, not of apprentices. He must have fought them himself. There was nothing I could do. When their mother came to see them, Broken Star was with me. He said that he had found me standing over their dead bodies." Her voice cracked, and she looked away. "Why didn't you tell her it was Broken Star?" Firepaw asked in disbelief. Yellowfang shook her head. "I couldn't." "Why not?" The old she-cat hesitated. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with regret. Broken Star is Shadowclan's leader. Noble Ragged Star was his father. His word is law. So, Broken Star is able to kill children and start a child army because of nepotism and the warrior code. The part of the warrior code is the word of a leader is law. You have to follow it no matter what, which is extremely authoritarian and not good. So there's my woke spiel of the day. Firepaw agrees to rescue the kids together tonight, but he tells them that they can't stay here. He can smell the ThunderClan patrol coming. And if Tiger Claw's with them, Yellowfang will be killed. So Yellowfang leads them to some peat, which is like kind of a swamp, and says their scents will be disguised there. So they follow her, and, quote, an eerie stillness settled over the woods, and a thin fog was beginning to gather between the tree trunks. Firepaw shook the droplets off his coat and impatiently pulled a burr off his chest. Yellowfang led them onward. The ground grew soggier, and their paws began to sink into the soft peat. The musty smell choked Firepaw's nostrils, but at least it would mask their own trail. Behind them, the noise of cats grew louder. Quick, under here, Yellowfang urged, ducking under a broad-leaved bush. The three cats crouched beneath it, drawing in their tails. Firepaw kept as still as he could, trying to ignore the rank wetness of the ground seeping into his belly fur, and listen to the rustling of the ThunderClan patrol as it came nearer and nearer. And that's the end of chapter 22. Not really any thoughts here, just moving on to chapter 23. And, quote, Firepaw could tell there were several cats in the patrol, traveling fast. He couldn't recognize the individual scents of the cats through their earthy bog odors, but he knew it was ThunderClan. He held his breath as the paw steps raced past and away. So, they don't get caught by the patrol, which is good. GRAYPAW asks if they're really going to try and rescue the kids from Shadowclan alone, and Yellowfang tells him she might be able to find help from inside Shadowclan. Not all the cats support Broken Star. End quote. When he became leader, Yellowfang explained, Broken Star forced the elders to leave the security of the inner camp. They had to live on the boundary and hunt for themselves. These are cats who have grown up with the warrior code. Some of them might help us. So Broken Star hates old people and children. Got it. He's kind of real for that. Can't lie. Because old people are annoying and kids are annoying. However, I don't think you should kill them. I don't think you should do that. Firepaw thinks quickly and says he might be able to persuade the ThunderClan hunting party to help too, and if he can speak to them before they see Yellowfang, he might be able to make them believe her story. And GRAYPAW says to wait at the dead ash tree where they smelled the kit blood until either him or Yellowfang return. GRAYPAW wonders if Firepaw really trusts Yellowfang to bring back help. Yellowfang insists that they must trust her and that she will return. And so she disappears, and then GRAYPAW asks if they've done the right thing, and Firepaw says, I don't know. If we have, we are heroes and the kits are safe. If we are wrong, then we are as good as dead. Which is insane. Yeah, no pressure, guys. Firepaw follows the ThunderClan patrol that just passed by. They're easy to follow because they're not trying to disguise their scent. Meanwhile, the cloud cover has rolled away, silver pelt glittered across the night sky, and the moon is rising. So it's nighttime at this point, and there's no more rain. He concentrates on scents from the patrol. He can smell White Storm, but he cannot smell Tiger Claw, which is good. He catches up with them, and, quote, the warriors turned and glared at him, fur bristling, ears flattened aggressively. Darkstripe was with them, and the young she-cat Mousefur, as well as the tabby warrior Running Wind. Mousefur wasn't the only she-cat in the patrol. Willowpelt was there too. This detail is so funny. It's like, female cats can be warriors too. We're so woke. Misogyny is still very pervasive in 2003. And unfortunately, it hasn't really gotten much better, and it's 2025, so yeah. But I just thought that sentence was funny. Firepaw, growled Whitestorm. What are you doing here? Firepaw gasped for breath. Blue Star sent me, he panted. She wanted me to find Yellowfang before Whitestorm interrupted him. Ah, he meowed. Blue Star told me I might find a friend out here. Now I understand what she meant. He looked thoughtfully at Firepaw. Is Tigerclaw nearby? Firepaw asked, feeling a tingle of pride at their shared gaze. Whitestorm looked at him curiously. Blue Star insisted she needed him to remain at camp to protect the remaining kits. Which is good, because Tigerclaw would just make everything worse. Firepaw is relieved and tells Whitestorm he and GRAYPAW need his help to rescue the kits, and the ThunderClan patrol agrees to come, and Firepaw warns them it will mean raiding the Shadowclan camp, and he says that Yellowfang can lead them there, and she's promised to bring help from her old allies in the camp. Mousefur glares at him and says, You found Yellowfang? Whitestorm doesn't understand. He says the traitor is going to help rescue the kits she stole. Firepaw steadies himself and says Yellowfang didn't take them, nor did she murder Spotted Leaf. She wants to help us rescue our kits. So Whitestorm decides to trust Firepaw and tells him to lead the way. GRAYPAW is still waiting by the ash tree when Firepaw returns. There's no sign of Yellowfang, and Firepaw says They don't know how far it is to the Shadowclan camp. She might be on her way back right now because White Storm is starting to stiffen and sort of get agitated. And GRAYPAW says she might be happily sharing tongues with her Shadowclan comrades while we sit here like fools waiting to be ambushed. Firepaw promises she'll come back, and then, quote, "Well said, young Firepaw." Yellowfang stalked out from behind the ash tree and sat down. "You're not the only one who can sneak up on someone," she meowed at Firepaw. "Remember the day we met? You were looking in the wrong direction that time, too." Just flaming him in front of everyone, which is so funny. 3 other Shadowclan cats appeared from behind the tree and settled themselves calmly on either side of Yellowfang. The ThunderClan cats bristled, alert and suspicious. Both clans stared silently at each other. Firepaw fidgeted uncomfortably, unsure what to do now. Eventually, one of the Shadowclan cats, a gray Tom, spoke. His long body was skinny, and his fur looked dull. "We have come to help you, not to harm you. You have come for your kits. We will help you rescue them." "What's in it for you?" asked White Storm warily. "We want your help to get rid of Broken Star. He has broken the warrior code, and Shadowclan is suffering." "So it's that simple, is it?" growled Running Wind. "We just drop into your camp, snatch the kits, kill your leader, and go home." "You will not meet as much resistance as you think," murmured the Grey Tom. So Yellowfang introduces her old friends. She introduces a Grey Tom called Ashfur, Nightpelt, a battered Black Tom, who is a senior warrior before Ragged Star was killed, and one of the Elder Queens, Dawncloud. She's a small tabby, and 2 of her kits died driving out WindClan. And Dawncloud says she does not want to lose any more of her kits. White Storm recognizes they're clearly skilled warriors if they creeped up on the patrol like that, but he wonders if there's enough, and he needs to know what we'll face when we raid the Shadowclan camp. Ashford tells him the old and sick of Shadowclan are slowly starving. The casualties among our kits are more than we can cope with. Darkstripe says, "But if Shadowclan's a mess, how come you've shown so much strength lately? And why is Broken Star still your leader?" End quote. "Broken Star is surrounded by a small group of elite warriors," answered Ashfur. "They are the ones to fear, because they would die for him without question. The other warriors obey his orders only because they are frightened. They will fight by his side as long as they think Broken Star is going to win. If they thought he would lose, they would fight against him, not for him." Darkstripe finished the Elder's words in disgust. "What sort of loyalty is that? Why is Bro low-key defending Cat Hitler? Why is he defending Cat Hitler's supporters? That's kind of crazy." The Shadowclan cats begin to get agitated by this, but Yellowfang interrupts and says, "Shadowclan was not always like this. When Ragged Star was the leader, they were feared for their strength, which came from the warrior code and clan loyalty, not from fear and bloodlust. And she wishes Ragged Star had lived longer." White Storm asks how Ragged Star died. There were so many rumors at the gatherings, but no one seemed to know for sure. And usually how leaders die is not generally kept a secret, so it's interesting that there are rumors about this. Yellowfang tells him Ragged Star was ambushed by a warrior patrol from another clan, and White Storm nods and says, "Yes, that's what most cats seem to think. These are bad times when leaders are picked off in the dark instead of open and honorable battle." End quote. Firepaw frowned, his mind racing over different battle plans. "Is there any way of taking the kits without alerting the whole clan?" he asked. Dawncloud answered him. "They are very closely guarded. Broken Star will be expecting ThunderClan to try to take them. You won't be able to steal them in secret. Open attack is your only hope. Then we must concentrate our attack on Broken Star and his inner guard," meowed White Storm. Yellowfang had a suggestion. "The Shadowclan warriors should lead me into the Shadowclan camp. They could say they had captured me. We have to make sure Broken Star and his warriors are out of their dens. News of my capture will bring them into the clearing. Once they're all out in the open, I'll give the signal for you to attack." White Storm was silent for a moment. Then he nodded, his face grave as he committed his warriors to the attack. "Very well, Yellowfang," he meowed. "Please lead the way to the Shadowclan camp." And that's the end of chapter 23. I have so many notes for this episode and the chapters. I usually don't cover 5. I usually cover 4. It's a lot of talking. Anyway, chapter 24. Yellowfang leads the patrol towards the Shadowclan camp, and, quote, "She guided them to a small hollow surrounded by thick undergrowth and pointed out the entrance to the Shadowclan camp. The tangled mass of brambles looked very different from the neat gorse tunnel that led into the ThunderClan camp. The camp boundary was full of holes and gaps, and the stench of rotting meat wafted toward them. GRAYPAW says, "You eat crow food?" And Ashfur answers that their warriors are used for attacking, not hunting, and they eat whatever we can find. Yellowfang directs ThunderClan to hide in a clump of bracken that has toadstools that will disguise their scent, and to wait for a signal. So she steps back to let the other Shadowclan cats lead their way into the camp. She tucks herself into the center of their group as though she were their prisoner, and they head into camp. The ThunderClan cats settle among the toadstools, waiting for Yellowfang's signal. They hear yowling from the Shadowclan camp, and so they spring from their hiding places. End quote. Yellowfang, Ashfur, Dawncloud, and Nightpelt were in a well-trodden, muddy clearing, wrestling with 6 vicious-looking warriors. Firepaw recognized Brokenstar and his deputy Blackfoot among them. The warriors looked hungry and battle-scarred, but Firepaw could see the hard muscles pounding beneath their patchy fur. Around the edge of the clearing, groups of scrawny cats stared uncertainly at the mayhem. Their skinny bodies seemed to recoil at the violence, while their dull eyes looked on, shocked and confused. Out of the corner of his eye, Firepaw saw Running Nose back away and hide beneath a bush. So these must be Brokenstar's fearful supporters, who are only supporting him because they don't want to get killed. And at Whitestorm's nodded signal, the ThunderClan cats leaped into the battle. So Firepaw fights off a silver tabby, and he then refuses to fight a literal kitten that tries to attack him. End quote. Firepaw! Firepaw heard Dawncloud screech his name. Watch out! Clawface is... He didn't hear the rest. A heavily built brown cat crashed into him. Clawface! Firepaw dug his claws into the ground and whirled around to fight. The warrior that killed Spotted Leaf. Rage surged through him and he flung himself onto the brown tom. Firepaw pushed the warrior to the ground and pressed his head into the dirt. Blinded by fury, he prepared to sink his teeth into Clawface's neck. But before he could deal his death blow, Whitestorm knocked him aside and grasped the Shadowclan warrior. ThunderClan warriors do not kill unless they have to, he growled in Firepaw's ear. We just need to let them know not to show their faces here again. He gave Clawface a fierce bite that sent him screaming out of the camp. And I'm wondering how hard you have to bite to make someone scream, like literally scream. I know it's probably exaggerated, but I guess Whitestorm has sharp teeth. Still raging, Firepaw looked around wildly. Brokenstar's warriors had gone. An angry screech sounded from behind GRAYPAW. GRAYPAW leaped out of the way, and Firepaw saw Yellowfang gripping Brokenstar with muddy, blood-stained paws. His body bled from several wounds. His ears were flattened against his head, and his whiskers were drawn back as he crouched, flattened beneath Yellowfang's powerful grasp. I never thought you would be harder to kill than my father, he snarled up at her. Oh, okay, so he was the one who killed Ragged Star. Fork found in kitchen. Kind of. Yellowfang recoiled as if she had been stung by a bee, her face twisted suddenly by shock and grief. She loosened her grip on Brokenstar, and instantly he threw her aside with a twist of his powerful body. You killed Ragged Star? Yellowfang wailed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Brokenstar eyed her coldly. You found his body, didn't you recognize my fur between his claws? Yellowfang stared in horror as he continued. He was a soft and foolish leader. He deserved to die. No! Hissed Yellowfang, her head dropping. Then she gave herself a shake. She looked up at Brokenstar, arching her back. And Bright Flower's kits? Did they deserve to die too? She rasped. Brokenstar growled and hurled himself at Yellowfang, forcing her onto her belly. Yellowfang didn't even attempt to struggle against his thorn-sharp claws. Firepaw saw with alarm that her eyes were glazed with sadness. Those kits were weak, Brokenstar hissed, bending his face toward Yellowfang's ear. They should have been no use to Shadowclan. If I hadn't killed them, some other warrior would have. A wail of grief went up from a black and white Shadowclan queen. So, she heard what Brokenstar said, so he clearly doesn't care about keeping up his facade anymore as, like, a determined, like, almost just leader. He's just letting everything out onto the table, where everyone can hear him. Brokenstar ignored the black and white queen. I should have killed you when I had the chance, he spat at Yellowfang. It seems I must have some of my father's softness. I was a fool to let you leave Shadowclan alive. He lunged, teeth bared, ready to sink them into her neck. Firepaw was quicker. He jumped onto Brokenstar's back before he could clamp his jaws shut. Firepaw dug his claws into the matted tabby fur and pulled him off the exhausted queen, flinging him to the edge of the clearing. Brokenstar twisted around in midair to land on his feet and looked into Firepaw's eyes, spitting viciously. Don't waste your time, apprentice. I've shared dreams with StarClan. You will have to kill me 9 times over before I join them. Do you really think you're strong enough for that? His eyes glowed with confidence and defiance. Firepaw stared back at him. His belly tightened. Brokenstar was a clan leader. How on earth could he expect to defeat him? But the watching Shadowclan cats had begun to pad slowly toward their defeated leader, snarling and hissing with hatred. They were battered and half-starved, but Brokenstar was outnumbered, and he seemed to realize this with a nervous flick of his tail. He crouched and backed away through the bushes. His eyes glittered menacingly from the shadows, his gaze finding Firepaw through the crowd. This isn't over, apprentice, he hissed before he turned and vanished into the forest after his broken warriors. They successfully defeated Brokenstar. Firepaw asks Whitestorm if they should go after him, and Whitestorm says, I think they got the message that they are not welcome here. Nightpelt, the senior Shadowclan warrior, says to leave them. If they dare to show their faces here again, Shadowclan will be strong enough by then to tackle them alone. Firepaw sees that the rest of Shadowclan is huddled together in the camp. They seem very numb to what's going on, and he thinks to himself, it will take time to rebuild this clan. GRAYPAW finds the kits at the bottom of a small pit covered in foliage, and Yellowfang tends to their wounds with the help of Running Nose. End quote. Nightpelt approached the group of ThunderClan cats. You helped Shadowclan rid itself of a brutal and dangerous leader, and we are grateful. But it is time you left our camp and returned to your own. I promise your hunting grounds will be free of Shadowclan warriors as long as we can find enough food in our own territory. Whitestorm nodded. Hunt in peace for 1 moon, Nightpelt. ThunderClan knows you need time to rebuild your clan. He turned to Yellowfang. And you, Yellowfang? He asked. Do you wish to return with us, or stay here with your old comrades? Yellowfang looked up at him. I will make the journey back with you. She glanced at a deep gash on Whitestorm's hind leg. You will need a medicine cat, for yourself as well as your kits. Thank you, purred Whitestorm. He signaled to the ThunderClan cats with a sweep of his tail and led them out of the clearing. Mousefur and Willowpelt helped the kits, who stumbled along, exhausted and bewildered. Yellowfang walked close to the wounded tabby kit, lifting him by the scruff of his neck every time he slipped. Firepaw and GRAYPAW followed them through the brambles, past the camp set line and out into the forest. The moon was still rising in the quiet sky as the ThunderClan party began the long trudge home, while around them showers of brown leaves fluttered to the forest floor. That's the end of chapter 24. So, lots going on. Chapter 25. The last chapter of this book? Woohoo! Quote, buoyed up with relief at being home again, Firepaw and GRAYPAW sprinted ahead of the patrol into the ThunderClan camp. Frostfur was lying in the middle of the clearing, her head resting sadly on her paws. As the 2 apprentices bounded in, she lifted her nose and sniffed the air. My kits! She cried. She leaped up and raced past Firepaw and GRAYPAW to meet the rest of the party as they emerged from the tunnel. The kits rushed over to Frostfur and nuzzled into her side. She curled her soft body around them and licked them each in turn, purring loudly. Yellowfang hung back at the camp entrance and looked on silently. Bluestar comes up to the patrol and asks if everyone's alright. And if the kits are alright, Whitestorm says they're all fine. And Bluestar says, well done, Whitestorm. ThunderClan honors you. Whitestorm accepts the praise, but says it was thanks to this apprentice that we found them, and looks towards Firepaw. Firepaw is about to speak when Tigerclaw's accusing snarl sounded from across the clearing. He says, why did you bring back the traitor? End quote. She is no traitor, Firepaw insisted. He looked around the camp. The rest of the cats had quickly gathered in the clearing to see the kits and congratulate the hunting party. Some of them had spotted Yellowfang and were eyeing her with looks of pure hatred. She killed Spotted Leaf, spat Longtail. Look between Spotted Leaf's claws, GRAYPAW suggested. You will find the brown fur of Clawface, not Yellowfang's gray fur. Bluestar nodded at Mousefur. He darted away from the crowd, toward the spot where Spotted Leaf's body lay, waiting for its dawn burial. The clan waited in tense silence till she returned. GRAYPAW is right, Mousefur panted, rushing back to the clearing. Spotted Leaf was not attacked by a gray cat. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. But that doesn't mean she didn't help to take the kits, hissed Tigerclaw. Without Yellowfang, we never would have recovered the kits, Firepaw spat, his exhaustion making him impatient. She knew that a Shadowclan warrior had taken them. She was hunting for them when I found her. She risked her life returning to the Shadowclan camp. It was Yellowfang who thought up the battle plan that got us into the Shadowclan camp and gave us a chance to defeat Brokenstar. The cats listened to Firepaw's words, astonished. He's right, Whitestorm meowed. Yellowfang is a friend. I'm glad to hear it, murmured Bluestar, catching Firepaw's eye. So, Bluestar's showing her respect and acknowledges she was right to trust him. Frostfur asks if Brokenstar is dead. Whitestorm says he escaped, but he'll never lead Shadowclan again. Frostfur is relieved by this, and then Whitestorm tells Bluestar that he promised Shadowclan that ThunderClan would leave them in peace until the next full moon. Bluestar approves and says that was a wise and generous offer. End quote. The ThunderClan leader walked past Whitestorm and the rest of the patrol and approached Yellowfang. Yellowfang lowered her eyes as Bluestar touched the gray cat's rough coat with her nose. Yellowfang, I wish you to replace Spotted Leaf as medicine cat to ThunderClan, Bluestar meowed. I'm sure you'll find all her supplies as she left them. The other cats began to murmur to each other, tails flicking with excitement. Yellowfang looked around at them anxiously and said nothing. Frostfur glanced at the other queens before she met Yellowfang's gaze and slowly nodded her approval. Yellowfang bent her head respectfully to the white cat before addressing her new leader. Thank you, Bluestar. Shadowclan is not the clan I once knew. ThunderClan is my clan now. I love her so much, and I'm so glad we'll get to see more of her. Firepaw felt a surge of satisfaction that the old she-cat he had come to love would be his clan's medicine cat from now on. Then his tail dropped as he realized that he would never again find Spotted Leaf in her clearing, the sunlight gleaming on her soft fur, her amber eyes shining in welcome. Bro, give it up! You talked to her like 3 times! This crush is, insane. I get it, but also, she's a medicine cat, you can't be with her anyway! Bluestar asks where RAVENPAW is, and Tigerclaw agrees, yes, where is my apprentice? Strange that he should disappear along with Brokenstar. He looked meaningfully around the clan. And this reminded me, I don't know if you guys have seen this, if you're as chronically online as I am, but there's this video wearing, it's like a pro-Trump, anti-woke shirt on a plane earlier this year, and he's, sitting on the plane and he's filming himself with a really smug expression, and he's kind of like looking at people passing by to get to their seats, and he's hoping people will react and be like, oh, your shirt sucks or whatever, and just nobody responds. Nobody reacts. And that's what this reminded me of. He's trying to be like, yeah, all these woke cats. Firepaw says, if you think he might have been helping Broken Star, then you're wrong, end quote. Ravenpaw is dead, Firepaw went on, dropping his head as if weighed down with grief. We found his body in Shadowclan territory. From the sense around him, he must have been slain by a Shadowclan patrol. He looked at Bluestar. I will tell you everything later, he promised. Yellowfang shot Firepaw a questioning look. Firepaw returned her gaze with a silent plea for her to hold her tongue. She twitched her ears briefly in understanding and looked away. Tigerclaw says, I never said that Ravenpaw was a traitor. He allows an expression of sorrow to cloud his eyes before he addresses the rest of the clan. Ravenpaw might have made a fine warrior. His death has come too soon, and his loss will be felt by many of us for a long time. Burrow was hinting at his betrayal very obviously for a while, and now he's turning around and being like, oh, I'm so sad. Firepaw thinks empty words, and he wonders what Tigerclaw would say if he knew that Ravenpaw was safe catching rats with barley. End quote. Bluestar broke the silence. We will miss Ravenpaw, but we shall mourn him tomorrow. First, there is another ritual that must be performed. One I know that Ravenpaw would have taken pleasure in. She turned to Firepaw and Graypaw. You have shown great courage tonight. Did they fight well, Whitestorm? She asked. Like warriors, Whitestorm replied solemnly. Oh my god, are they about to become warriors? Bluestar met his yellow-eyed gaze and gave a slight nod. Then she lifted her chin and fixed her eyes on Silverpelt's swath of stars. Her voice rang out, clear and measured in the hushed woods. I, Bluestar, leader of ThunderClan, call upon my warrior ancestors to look down on these two apprentices. They have trained hard to understand the ways of your noble code, and I commend them to you as warriors in their turn. She looked down at Firepaw and Graypaw, narrowing her eyes. Firepaw, Graypaw, do you promise to uphold the warrior code and to protect and defend this clan, even at the cost of your lives? Firepaw felt something stir within him, a fire that burned in his belly and rang in his ears. He suddenly felt that everything he had done for the clan so far, all the prey he had stalked, all the enemy warriors he had fought, had been for the sake of this single moment. Once again, anime protagonist. I do, he replied steadily. I do, echoed Graypaw, his fur bristling with excitement. That by the powers of StarClan, I give you your warrior names. Graypaw, from this moment you will be known as Graystripe. StarClan honors your bravery and your strength, and we welcome you as a full warrior of ThunderClan. Bluestar stepped forward and rested her muzzle on top of Graystripe's bowed head. He bent lower to give her shoulder a respectful lick, then straightened up and walked over to join the other warriors. Bluestar stood and studied Firepaw for a long moment before speaking. Firepaw, from this moment you will be known as Fireheart. StarClan honors your bravery and your strength, and we welcome you as a full warrior of ThunderClan. She touched her muzzle to his head and murmured, Fireheart, I am proud to have you as my warrior. Serve your clan well, young one. So wholesome. He finally made it. This is the moment where he made it. Fireheart's muscles were trembling so much that he could hardly stoop to lick Bluestar's shoulder. He purred hoarsely to show his thanks, then slipped away to stand beside Graystripe. Meows of tribute sounded from the crowd, and the voices of the clan rose in the still night air to chant the new warrior names. Fireheart, Graystripe, Fireheart, Graystripe. I don't know exactly how they're supposed to be cheered, but that makes the most sense to me, so that's what I'm doing. Anyway, Fireheart looked around the clan, seeing faces that had grown so familiar over the last few moons. He listened to them as they called his new name and felt overwhelmed by the kindness and respect he saw shining in their eyes. It is almost moon high, meowed Bluestar. In the tradition of our ancestors, Fireheart and Graystripe must sit in silent vigil until dawn and guard the camp alone while we sleep. And as the rest of the clan begins to go back to their dens to sleep, Tigerclaw pushes past Fireheart. He slows as he passes and hisses, Don't think you can outwit me, kitty pet. Be careful what you tell Bluestar. Somehow he knows that Firepaw knows what he did, and Fireheart realizes Bluestar has to know about Tigerclaw's treachery, so he asks Bluestar if he can speak with her, even though he's breaking the vow of silence, but Bluestar says, This is an important ritual, Fireheart. You can speak to me in the morning. Fireheart accepts this because he knows Tigerclaw is not a problem that can be solved overnight anyway, which is honestly true, and so he sits next to Graystripe. End quote. Fireheart looked at the moon above his head. His orange coat glowed silver in the cold light. Around him, the bushes and trees were draped in mist that brushed damply against his fur. Fireheart closed his eyes and recalled the dreams of his kittenhood. The cool forest scents in his nostrils were real now, and the life of a warrior stretched ahead of him. He felt unrestrained joy flood up from his paws and surge through his body. Then he opened his eyes with a jolt. Another pair of eyes was shining back at him from the warrior's den. Tigerclaw. Fireheart stared back without blinking. He was a warrior now. He had made an enemy of the clan's deputy, but Tigerclaw had made an enemy of him. Fireheart was not the same naive young cat who had joined the clan all those moons ago. He was bigger, stronger, faster, and wiser. Like the Daft Punk song. If he was destined to oppose Tigerclaw, then so be it. Fireheart was ready for the challenge. And that is the end of Warriors Into the Wild. Definitely leaving on, like, it was a solid ending, but also a cliffhanger. Alright, so here's my final thoughts. This book, and especially the last few chapters, are definitely setting up a rivalry between Fireheart and Tigerclaw. So, interested to see how that progresses. I get why Fireheart and Graystripe became warriors, to sort of round out the book well and advance the plot, but in my opinion, it happened way too fast. Fireheart had battle training like twice in this entire book, and I know that it's probably implied that he did more training, but still. And Dustpaw and Sandpaw have been training way longer, so that's not fair to them, and I know they're side characters, but still, it doesn't make any sense. I think we will almost definitely be seeing Broken Star again, since he's not dead, and he literally said himself this isn't over, so that's making it pretty obvious that he will return, just not sure when. I think the pacing in this book was very good. Not too much was like filler chapters, and not every single chapter had a completely major event either, compared to the new books, which are kind of a lot of filler, in my opinion. Not filler, but like it's not as engaging, I think, as these older books are. And I'm excited to read book 2. I've read this first book so many times. I know like every detail of what happens, but some of the following books I haven't read in a while. So, I'm very, very excited. And so, here is the book 2 blurb. Fireheart is a warrior now, so why does he find himself strangely drawn to a mysterious and familiar house cat? As tensions escalate between the clans, loyalties are tested, and Fireheart must decide who can be trusted and who will betray him. Ooh, that could be about Tigerclaw, but that could be about someone else. That's the end of book 1. It only took, 6 episodes to get through it? Which is, I think, a pretty good pace. I don't want to, rush through these books, but at the same time, there's so many books. If I go through it as slowly as possible, I'm gonna be done with this when I'm 80, so, which is fine. I mean, I don't mind doing this podcast forever and ever, honestly, but that's the end of the first book. Thank you for joining me. Next week's episode, we're gonna get right into book 2. There's not gonna be a break. I will be getting busier. I think I might be working 3 jobs at the same time, because the economy and the job market in the United States, where I live, is so horrendous right now. So I think I'll still have time for the podcast, but I might have to go down to once every other week or something. Yeah, I don't know, but just letting y'all know in advance, and I'll put an announcement somewhere if I have to reduce it. And I can feel my intestines yelling at me. The Dunkin' coffee has hit my intestines. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. My social links are in my YouTube video description, Spotify, Apple Podcast description, so you can follow me on there if you'd like. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky as well to get updated when new episodes are out. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very glad I started doing this podcast. It's been really fun, and I'll see you next week when we start book 2 of The Prophecies Begin. And may StarClan light your path.